we can actually begin. Let me do my formal intro so it sounds professional. And if people don't know, or if you listen to my radio show, we'll play this again tonight on my radio show. But here's the intro to make it professional. And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Also, Dean's Report, Substack Live. And look who is here, my friends. It is Frank Figliuzzi. You know him, MSNBC, NBC, national security expert, a retired FBI assistant director, a best-selling author, and he's now on Substack. Subscribe to Frank at Substack at the Frank Figliuzzi, because there's only one Frank, but that's Frank. So sign up for Frank.
Oh yeah, don't accept imposters. No
No,
imposters.
so there's only one Frank Figliuzzi. There's only one Dean Obeidallah. No one's tried to be me ever. So Frank, good to see you. So Frank, obviously big news. We woke up this morning. The first, there was a shooting we learned at ICE facility in Dallas. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it. As the days gone on, we're still waiting. We don't have enough information. We still don't. But share what you know, what you've seen, and what stands out for you from this.
Yeah, I think, look, it's always fraught with peril, as I know, going on with a breaking news event early on, because the facts change. And I have to tell you, there's a disturbing number of discrepancies already. Even as we were about to go on, I'm watching a major news network. Their crawl line still has wrong information about the number of dead detainees and all of that. It's very confusing. It's made even more confusing, Dean, when the head of the FBI, pushes out a photo of ammo without a lot of explanation. And I really mourn not only for the dead detainees and their families, but for the state we're in right now, which is my social media is filled with people saying, I can't believe a word that law enforcement is saying right now. And that hurts, right? That's the loss of institutional integrity and credibility that Donald Trump has worked so hard to instill. And now, ironically, he wants us to believe his led institutions. That it doesn't work that way. So what do I think we know? And I'm going to preface it that way.
Right.
Look, horrible incident. Apparently some kind of sniper, I'm going to use that word, but very loosely, because reports are it's a 2-story building that he was at or on top of, so it's really not that much of high ground. It was in Dallas, an ICE field office, so actually not a detention center necessarily, but rather people come and go with meetings and hearings and stuff like that, but also come to be processed, is what I'm hearing. So not a detention center, yet targeted, because that's what the law enforcement is saying. This was targeted violence, their words, not mine. And allegedly, based on a photo and a press conference, there was at least one bullet casing intact that was found to have the words anti-ICE inscribed on it in blue ink. Yet, here we go.
One thing, I don't want to interrupt you, you're the expert here, but can I just speak on behalf of many of us right now? When they had the press conference, I was listening live, and he goes, there was anti-ICE writings on the casings, and then they released the casings, it says anti-ICE. I'm like, that wasn't good. That was too on the nose. Like, if you really, I'm not kidding. Look, we're both lawyers, but forget law. Common sense here. If you hate ICE to the point where you're going to give your life to kill ICE agents, I don't think you'd write the word anti-ICE. I think you'd use a more profane, something really emotional like F-ICE or ICE sucks or ICE are Nazis, that kind of stuff, all that kind of garbage, right? But that's not what happened. To me, and I'm not saying it's fraudulent, I'm just saying it's hard to believe. That's what I'm saying.
No, I get it in this environment. I'm with you on hard to believe. But yet, I'm intrigued by a couple of things. First, I'm upset that our vice president, J.D. Vance, apparently posted something like the violence against law enforcement or the obsessive aggressiveness against law enforcement has to stop. Okay, I'm sorry, but we have dead and wounded immigrants. I don't know what you're talking about. And then secondly, so that's a spin that we've got to be very careful about. But then let's dig into a little more deeper things. I've seen one report, and I have to emphasize one report, that this shooter used a bolt-action rifle.
Okay.
Where have we seen a bolt-action rifle recently? In Utah. In Utah. We saw a Mauser single bolt-action. What does that mean? It requires you to actually load each bullet individually and extract each bullet individually. Does this mean we're seeing a copycat? I don't know. When we see anti-ICE scrawled on one bullet. Does it mean, if true, that this is some kind of retribution or retaliation for the murder of Charlie Kirk? If someone believes that a left-winger murdered Charlie Kirk, is there a way to attack migrants and say that this is some retribution? I have no idea. But there's another, and I'm going to throw this out as a theory. So let me
I
label
like this. No.
theory. Theory.
Can
There
we just
are
call this irresponsible speculation? We're going to call this segment now.
okay. I
No,
prefer
okay.
hypothesis.
Okay, no, I like irresponsible speculation.
Right.
That's
Or
that's what talk
not
radio's about, my friend. So no,
yeah.
go right ahead. Sorry.
Not hypotenuse nor hippopotamus.
Well, either
Or
one, whatever you want to
hypothalamus.
call it.
No. But
Rhinoceros.
we also have to be aware that there are a lot of people out there who adhere to acceleration theory. What is that? It means they want to hasten the end of organized society, and they'll commit violence to do it. Some of the Boogaloo Boys are into this. People who have been caught shooting up power grid and utility grid centers are accelerators, accelerants, whatever they call themselves. It's violence for the purpose of destroying society. So somebody who takes the time to scroll on one bullet, anti-ICE, and shoot at migrants / an ICE office, are they doing it perhaps for the sake of violence? That's a possibility too that we can't rule anything out at this point. It's my point.
And I want to, and here we can irresponsibly speculate or be hypothesis, whatever you want to say, right? It's us. We're talking. Everyone gets it. We understand his opinion. When the Homeland Security on their website 2 hours ago, let me read, Frank, what Kristi Noem put on the official website for Homeland Security. She wrote here, the shell casings were found with anti-ICE messages on them. This was an attack on ICE law enforcement. Then she goes on to say, this violent attack was motivated by hatred for ICE. For months, we've been warning politicians and the media, tone down their rhetoric about ICE law enforcement before someone is killed. And you can't compare ICE and Nazi Gestapos to secret police and slave patrols and not have consequences. And I'm like, you even not told us yet the identity of the shooter. You don't know the motivation. It could be, I'm not gonna say false flag like people say on the far right. It could be what you're suggesting. Someone has a different agenda. Wouldn't you wait to put it on the government website? This is Homeland Security. I'm literally reading the Homeland Security website, folks, right now. This is what she put on 2 hours ago. We don't know the identity. We don't know what their friends said about the person. We don't know the social media postings. We don't know their voting record. This could be a MAGA person. And I'm not suggesting it is. I'm saying we don't know,
We don't
Frank.
know.
How irresponsible is this? And it goes to your earlier point. No one can trust a word that this administration says about anything.
That's the saddest part of this, other than the deaths of seemingly people who were actually, it appears possible. Again, we don't know. Were people handcuffed? Were the migrant victims in detention? Were they in transport? Was there I've heard reports know that the shots were fired at or into a van, therefore it was indiscriminate. I don't know. And that's precisely why reasonable, sane law enforcement leaders should not be posting on social media, should not be implying they know the answer to the question of who did this when they simply do not. And by the way, none of us should be engaged in the practice of immediate finger pointing and blame, but rather mourning death. We should be mourning death and condemning violence, period.
Sure, I agree with you. But Frank, what we're seeing though, and everyone gets this, like Kash Patel he's having dinner, I think, in New York at Rayo's. That was the reporting on the night that he thought the guy who killed Charlie Kirk was first caught, and he tweeted out because this is all political. It's not law enforcement, right? They want to create a media narrative. In that case, that I'm such a great FBI director. Now the media narrative are watching J.D. Vance, Kristi Noem, Kash Patel, again, rushing out there. This is anti-ICE. So if it ends up not anti-ICE, that's already the narrative in the view of MAGA supporters. And it's really hard for us to drag that back to the other side. That's all this is. They're trying to create media narratives before the facts have a chance to actually create the accurate narrative, whatever that might be. We don't know what it would be. They don't want to wait.
We lost prioritization of facts a long time ago. And the melding of politics and law enforcement is a disaster for a society. Just look through history. Just look through history. When law enforcement is controlled and managed by political leaders, disaster.
It's unbelievable. And by the way, you thought what I read about Nome was bad. Greg Abbott this morning, and I'm sure he was briefed that the people killed were detainees because that was pretty instantaneous. He wrote that Texas fully supports ICE. This is Governor Greg Abbott, folks. I'm reading verbatim his tweet. Both the Texas Department of Public Safety work closely with ICE. This assassination will not slow our arrest, detention, and deportation of illegal immigrants. We work with ICE. We'll get to the bottom of the assassin's motive. Um, Not even any sense of humanity of the detainees who were killed. They knew they were detainees. Then they knew they were officers. They would have told the governor that. Not a sense of humanity for people who are, they could be documented, they could be wrongly held. We don't know. But because
Mhm.
they're detained and everything is for ICE.
Well,
Everything is,
a couple of things. One, look at his use of the word assassins.
yeah.
We're assassin. Okay, there's a definition of assassin, and it means you conclude through investigation that it was politically motivated. You've killed a political figure for their ideology. So I'm sorry, we have migrants who've been shot. What? What assassin? So no. The other thing, you be prepared for this. Be prepared for this. You're going to start hearing the dead disparaged, the
Uh,
wounded disparaged. Right? Remember back George Floyd. What have we heard a steady stream of since George Floyd's murder by a police officer in the middle of the street? George Floyd was a scumbag, quote unquote. He didn't deserve to live. He had a huge criminal record. Yeah. Oh, okay. You know what? Maybe. Yes, he did have a criminal record. I don't care how horrible it was. Our system of laws means you don't get murdered in the street with a knee on your neck by someone in uniform. So be prepared. I'm telling you, we're going to hear about the dead, and we're going to hear they were terrible. One person dead, I guess, if we've got that right, and two wounded. I don't know. We're going to hear how hot.
AP said two dead, and other reports saying one dead. How
I
do you
know
not know how many are dead? I don't understand this. Like,
some of it is confusion with the fact that the shooter
oh,
allegedly would die by suicide. I get the confusion there, but even if you allow for that, people are getting numbers all conflated. So my point is this: be prepared for the moment where somebody comes out and goes, you know what? These migrants, they were bad people. And I'm
and that's
telling you, it's
horrible.
coming.
Here is at 3:00 at the time, like 20 minutes ago, our time. AP updated reporting: a shooter with a rifle opened fire, killing two detainees and wounding another before taking his own life. That is AP right now. That's. I saw one person. I saw the shooter was killed. Obviously, we know that's true. So look. This story is unfolding, and in the old days, and that's before Trump. Now, facts would have mattered. The FBI would not have jumped to conclusions. At least the mayor of Dallas tried to say today, let's wait. But no, they ran right ahead to do this. So I want to, because we could talk all day about this, but I want to talk about a few of the things that are vitally important. One is Tom Homan and the cover, but the other is Antifa. Donald Trump signed an executive order labeling Antifa a domestic terrorist group. And I think it's very important that people understand there's no legal basis to do that. Okay, I want people to get that. And I want Frank, as a former FBI top official and a lawyer as well, to explain that to people. We have no legal means to name domestic groups terrorist groups. If we did, I would have clamored for MAGA, and I wanted MAGA to be labeled after January 6th. Now, of course, that wasn't going to happen, but I know the law. So, Frank, tell people what is going on here. And by the way, the executive order signed by Trump does not cite to a federal statute or a provision of the Constitution. It's him just saying it's a terrorist group. Like it's
Yeah.
a two paragraphs. It's ridiculous.
If this weren't so gravely serious, it would be comical
Yeah.
because there's only two things wrong with the proclaiming that Antifa is now a domestic terror organization. Number one, Antifa doesn't exist. Number two, as you said, we have no process in this country to designate a domestic terror group. We've decided deliberately as a nation that we don't want a president, gee, we were right about this,
Yeah, I know.
designating people he doesn't like as terrorists. So let me be clear here. I oppose violence and burning buildings and throwing bricks at police officers during protests. But guess what? We have a way in our system to deal with that. It's called arresting them. So we don't. When you see a social media post proclaiming that someone the president doesn't like is a domestic terrorist, understand the horror and beauty of this simultaneously. What do I mean? It is so vague and ephemeral that he literally, I'm telling you, we're going to see perp walks pretty soon of somebody being spirited into a prison as the first Antifa arrest. And it's going to be, I don't know, some guy who protested holding a sign or threw something at somebody. But if you think you're going to have central funding, a home office in Peoria, a business card with Vice President Antifa on it, it's not going to happen. They can't even get their act together.
But isn't that, and you're getting at the real issue here. Antifa is not defined in the executive order, but what it does say is Antifa is, and I'll read from it, employs elaborate means and mechanisms to shield the identities of operatives, concealing its funding and sources and operations in order to frustrate law enforcement. That's from the executive order, folks. So everyone hearing that, that is written broadly on purpose. And then the next paragraph, Trump directs the government, all the agencies, to go after the funding and anyone who gives material support to anyone involved in Antifa. That could be George Soros, the way they define it. It could be the Ford Foundation, because J.D. Vance said the Ford Foundation, which I've been involved with that organization at events. Am I material support? Like, where are we going with this? Act Blue, he's already come after. To me, this seems like from the fascist or the authoritarian playbook to prosecute political opponents and anyone who gives donations. And the other part is self-censor. Like, you're worried. If I give money through Act Blue, is Trump going to come for me? That's part of it. So people go like, I'm not going to give money to Democrats through online platforms.
He gets to define who the domestic terrorist is.
Yep.
And look, when there's language in there about, we're going to look at the donors to people who support anti-fascist ideology. I'm against fascism. I don't know. I had an uncle who served in World War II. He was fighting fascists. How about if I give a donation to the World War II Museum in New Orleans, which by the way is fantastic. If I give money to the World War II Museum, am I supporting an anti-fascist ideology? I don't know.
And I think everyone should be worried. And on articles I've written for Substack recently, and on my SiriusXM show, I've talked about how Mussolini and Hitler, and again, Trump's neither Mussolini nor Hitler, although he's closer to Mussolini. I mean, he's buffoonish. There's a lot going on, but forget.
Well, he hasn't made the trains run on time yet.
But and Mussolini really didn't. That I just had an expert on Mussolini on. So it was sort of, that's a mythology. But the point is, they use tragedy to consolidate power, to imprison political opponents, and ultimately make themselves supreme leader of the land with no checks and balances. Trump's almost there without doing anything because the Supreme Court, no check. Congress is no check because Republicans have it. But the fear is if Donald Trump continues using the fascist playbook, the authoritarian playbook, it is to weaponize this executive order to go after anyone who's a Democrat, who's funding Democrats, to go after big donors and yell, say they're Antifa, and you got to fight it in court, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to be ugly.
Indeed.
So that's my concern. So all right, let's shift gears. Two last things here in the last few minutes. One is something you were covering and you brought my attention to, and it's a horrible thing. And we've just finished the first couple of days of the Jewish holidays.
Rosh Hashanah.
Happy New Year, Rosh Hashanah. Anyone who's Jewish and they celebrate those days. A synagogue in Florida it didn't get much press. The guy burned it down. It was a hate crime. A guy is charged, Blake Richard Hoover, is 31. His mom turned him in. And you were covering a lot, and you brought it to my attention. Share a little bit about this, please.
Well, you're right about it not getting the coverage it deserves. I mean, are we numb now to arsons at synagogues on the eve of the high holidays? Look, you rarely see a sheriff's department come out quickly and say, hey, this is a hate crime. Holy cow. And how about the suspect's mother saying, hey, recently he really turned anti-Jew, anti-gay. Oh, my God. And so that should be front page. And recently, what does that mean? Well, I criticize people for jumping to conclusions, but we are in an environment where hate has been given license. And so we've got to condemn that, and the media has to cover it even more, even if you don't like it.
And the reason this is so alarming is that here's a young guy, he's 31. He's not early 20s like a lot of the other young white guys, but he's 31. Far-right ideology, those are connected. Anti-Semitic, anti-gays, probably also anti-Muslim. They're all connected. It is like the Nick Fuentes wing, which is even further to the right. If people don't know him, he's a Holocaust denier. He had dinner with Donald Trump at the White House with Kanye West. That Martin Taylor Greene spoke at his events and stuff like that. They are further to the right. And then Charlie Kirk, who was a mainstream white nationalist, which is despicable, but
Yep.
that's where he is. These
Yep.
guys are to the right of that,
Yep.
and openly anti-Semitic, openly anti-gay, Christian nationalist, brown and black people. We have no place in this country. They want us out. You're Italian. I'm half Italian, half Arab. The Arabs said they want out, but I don't think they didn't like the Catholics and the Sicilians before. I'm half Sicilian. I don't think you're a fan of my people on either side. But Frank, there is a potential for more of this violence if it's not addressed. That's what concerns me.
Yeah, we need, when law enforcement comes out right away and says hate crime, his mother comes out and says basically hate crime. It's time to call it what it is. And I'm not hearing the condemnation. I guess there's too many outrages a week here, a day here, but there's going to be more of it unless we get a handle. And this is a whole hour conversation on white guys spending way too much time in mom's basement online. That's a problem.
It is, and look, there is this act in Florida. It's a hate crime, but there's a political element to it if you look at the ideology. And I don't know where he was radicalized, but if you look at the Nick Fuentes wing, which they're a political movement, and they spew this, and he says, I don't want any violence. You're taking him to the doorstep of violence, and some are crossing through it, like this guy. Frank, we're living. Forget left and right. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying we're living in a time where political violence is becoming more not daily, it is more frequent, and I really fear there'll be like a one for one type of thing because it happens. Physics, Newton's laws, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. I'm really concerned we could get there more and more going forward, and I hope not.
Political violence is the fastest way to dismantle a democracy. Period. Yep.
And are you concerned, as someone who worked in the FBI, that we're on a path to something more increased in the future?
I don't even need to think about that answer. Absolutely. And do I think federal law enforcement is up to the task? I do not.
Wow. By the way, going back to 1 second, then we'll go to Tom Holman before we wrap up.
Please.
Antifa, I guess arguably Antifa was involved in certain protests, but MAGA attacked our Capitol on January 6th, and then Donald Trump pardoned the MAGA militia. MAGA's been involved in threatening judges and members of Congress. MAGA bombers sent bombs to media outlets. Thankfully, they didn't go off. A person who was a Trump supporter killed the Democrat in Minnesota. There was someone who subscribed to these right-wing MAGA views that shot at the CDC recently. There was a MAGA person who, to avenge Donald Trump's and the search of the FBI by the FBI, went to Cincinnati and tried to kill FBI agents. If there was any objective movement that might need to be looked into to neutralize the threat, it might be not the normal MAGA. I think there's a military wing of MAGA, and that might be too simplistic. I'm not an expert on this stuff, but that's what I feel like. There's a wing there that says violence is okay.
Look, the Trump administration recently took down from an official website a study and data that clearly indicates that the far right is more responsible for political violence and violence generally. They took it down. We are rewriting history and redoing the math. So in that environment, the intelligence analyst who raises her hand and says, hey, I've got a report here that's going to knock your socks off on who's committing violence, that's going nowhere if they took the goddamn the report down. So that's where we are. We've got to keep track ourselves. Keep track yourself of what's going on.
And very last thing, because I think they should have gotten more press, but you tell me, Borders Czar Tom Homan, and MSNBC reported there was an undercover operation last year that Homan, who's now Border Czar, was given $50,000. And it was like, give me the money, and then if Trump wins and I get in there, I'll get you these contracts and that kind of stuff. What more, because you were writing about it more, what more can you tell us about this, please?
Yeah, so real quick, some really good reporters at MSNBC, including Carol Leonnig and Ken Delanian, and then followed up by a report by the New York Times, have both confirmed through multiple sources, even through the eyeing of government documents, that Border Czar Tom Homan, back in September of last year, before he was named Border Czar, was allegedly, this was the proper predication, by the way, for the case. They weren't, contrary to opinion, this wasn't a deep state attempt to sting somebody for grins. This
Right.
was properly predicated on information that Homan was soliciting money to, in the event that he became board czar, to steer contracts towards certain business executives or people or contractors. And so here come two or more, or one undercover FBI agent who, again, pass him allegedly $50,000 in cash in a paper kava bag from a salad shop. And I ordered from salad today from Kava because I thought perhaps it would come with a $50,000 gift.
No.
It did not. But
that's off the menu. You're ordering off the menu.
Well, you have to. They do have specials in the back of the kitchen. But here's the big news. The reporting is that the Trump admin, within the last few weeks, closed down the case. Okay? Number two, the White House put out a statement saying he never took the cash. Number three, Tom Homan did an interview on Fox where he didn't say he didn't take the cash, but rather, I didn't do anything criminal. I have no idea what that means, by the way. But I've got questions like, that's our money. That's our taxpayer dollars in that kava bag. I want it back. I want to know where my money is. I also, and if he mistook it for a salad and ate it, then I get it. We're never going to get the money back. But I also want to know, did anybody tip him off in the administration? Hey, Tom, we've got you and we own you and we're going to make this go away. I just need to know. Congress needs to know. Every reporter who interviews Tom Homan on every Sunday morning show from now on, first question needs to be, Tom, where's the money?
Where's our money? I wish the media would cover it more. And I think it's an important story. But the idea of grift or corruption in the Trump administration, that's called like Thursday. You know, it's like every day, like everyone's involved in the corruption. So this is almost like adorable. 50,000. You got Don Jr. getting $2 billion from UAE, which Dad knows about. It's a company where Dad's actually profiting from the level of corruption. So you've got Trump DOJ protecting Tom Homan and him firing U.S. attorneys for not prosecuting James Comey and Letitia James and others. This is the most corrupt thing we've ever lived through, folks. You're not. Don't adjust your channel, your TV. This is the most corrupt. This is it. It's not a joke. This is it.
Yeah, and look, I get it. We could engage in a very legal discussion of, was this bribery? Since Tom didn't hold the job yet, was it chargeable? Yeah, yes. So it may not have satisfied the bribery charges, but it certainly could have been charged as fraud or something else. And I've got people saying, well, okay, so if the federal government, Frank, isn't going to charge it, how about the state where it happened? Well, you know where it happened? It happened in Texas. You think Governor Abbott and his attorney general are going to charge this as a state crime?
Paxton? No.
That's never happening.
They'll divide the money up between them. Here's 10,000 for you. Here's 10,000 for you. Ken Paxton will probably take it. Probably. I'm not saying definitely.
No.
All right, before we go, Frank, so people, your Substack is the Frank Figliuzzi on Substack.com.
Yes, please. The Frank Figliuzzi. You can subscribe for free if you want to have some unfettered reporting from me via not corporate reporting. You can pay. You can do whatever you want, but join me over on Substack or Instagram or Blue Sky or Threads.
All right, Frank. Nice seeing you, and thanks everyone for tuning in. All the great comments here. We still going on. I saw them live. A lot of people joined. They laughed. They had a heart symbol. Like it so much. Thank you very much. And sign up for my Substack if you haven't, because I'm very needy. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Frank. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care. Be safe.
You too.